You notice you're like moving into the dad joke type of guy pretty smoothly. The transition I see is fairly like it's right there. You know what I mean? I think it's because you work in sales. You got to make these smooth jokes.
I'm prepping myself.
You're pre-prep, bro.
Pre-prepped.
You're pre-prepped. You're ready to be in the microwave.
Did you already know about what I sent you, or I sent two things, right?
Yeah.
So one was just the Saudi-Canada relations, and the other one was the Saudi the purge, essentially, back in 2017.
Yeah. So as far as the relations, I mean,
well, we can do the, but like you already know about this.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's fine. I did a bit of a rabbit hole yesterday on Saudi Arabia.
that was a big pause, my guy.
No,
What were you thinking about that?
We haven't started yet, so I was just thinking about what I was going to say.
No, it's already started, bro. It's ready to go.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, you fucking. This guy's pausing.
Yeah, no, sorry. So anyways, last night I did a kind of a rabbit hole YouTube thing on Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And I didn't search Saudi Arabia. I was watching a video on there's a guy that just started a channel doing videos about geopolitics and sports, and he kind of on some of the videos he does like some crossover stuff. And he spoke about Saudi Arabia. And, you know, most people talk about their sports washing, like they're buying all these things because they want to like sports wash
Right.
their image. It was interesting because his point was that it's not really sports washing because they could almost give a fuck about external views on their country. Like they don't really care what, you know, you or I think about Saudi Arabia, but they do care what their citizens think about the country. Like they like stability, right? And for the longest time, their stability has been through the money generated via oil revenue.
Yeah.
And the outlook now is that there is a possibility that will at some point dry up, not because of the reserves, but because of the need for oil will start to lessen, and so the amount of money that they're being able to pump into the economy via oil will diminish. And
Right.
so Mohammed bin Salman was technically he's the crown prince. He's not actually the king, even though he acts like the king. Has an initiative called Saudi Arabia 2030 that basically is a huge plan to completely revolutionize how Saudi Arabia gets a lot of their income and also how they spend it. So they have like, bro, we're talking like nobody really knows how much money they have, but people estimate it's within the high hundreds of billions to like upwards of like $3 trillion in a fund that they can just use to like spend on shit. So they've bought soccer teams. They've bought, they have investments in all the major Fortune 500 companies like Uber, Facebook, Meta, all of them. And we're talking like big influxes, not like a few million. We're talking like a few billion here and there.
Yeah.
And what's been interesting to see is that they're using this as a way to almost prove to their citizens that Saudi Arabia is a country you want to live in. Like it's a good place to be, right? And you talk about the sports thing.
I don't think. Sorry. To fucking
Yeah, no,
interrupt,
that's
but
okay.
I don't think they're wrong.
No, I don't.
This is the thing. You know where Saudi Arabia and Dubai and all these places are for? These are places for people who are entrepreneurs or make money online that want to move to a tax-free state.
Yeah.
And if you are willing to sacrifice the fact that there's very little nightlife, like it's not the way people think. It's not Vegas, right? You know, there's not women everywhere throwing their, you know, tits at you. It's not the same thing. There's a lot of luxury. There's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of connections you can make with Saudis and people from Dubai, because most of those people from Dubai are Saudi.
Yeah.
But then again, it's like, what is it that you want to do? These places exist for certain type of people, not for all of us. Most of us are working 9 to 5s. Like, we don't have the money generation for that move, regardless of the fact.
And I guess what's interesting when I started, because what you said makes a lot of sense, right? Like for most of us, it's like, well, we're not really going to see a big benefit if we were just up and move. Like we're not at the point where the amount of income that we generate for a country is attractive enough for Saudi Arabia to look at us and be like, oh yeah, damn, we want that guy. You know what I mean? It's like, ooh, yeah, we want that guy making like 500. No, they're looking at guys that like make like upwards of millions up into the billions, or at least have an idea that might do more for them. Like there's did you hear about, I mean, you've sent me a few things like the wall, like that wall city or whatever. That's in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
There's the other one is something called, it's like, it starts with an M, like Noam or Noab or whatever. it's a planned futuristic city that they want to build in the northeast corner of the country, and it's slated for completion like 2030. And they said they're gonna start letting people see some of it this year and next year, and they're having all these projects and all these things that really make Saudi Arabia more desirable for their own people, because for the longest time you had Saudi Arabia fully funding, and they still do, healthcare, education, completely 100% funded, and you could do whatever you want. So the other connection to Canada here is that they used to actually have a very strong, Saudi Arabia and Canada used to have a very strong relationship together. They used to send upwards of tens of thousands of their own students to Canada on a yearly basis to get an education, fully paid for by the government, and then come back. And then Canada would also gain some.
Did I tell you about this?
Some goodwill. I think you did.
I think I did
but
tell you about this.
I also remember personally when I was in Thunder Bay, one of my roommates was actually from Saudi Arabia on one of those. Like, he was an exchange student from Saudi Arabia. And I remember at the time thinking, like, what the fuck? Like, I've never met anybody who's actually from Saudi Arabia. I've met a lot of Middle Easterns. I've met Afghanis, Iraqis here in Vancouver, but I was like, never did I meet a Saudi Arabian. And he was telling me all this stuff about how he was here, and he was just like he was zero stress. Like, zero stress. Because he knew that everything was paid for. He didn't have to worry about shit. He just had to do okay on his grades, and he was fine. He got to enjoy some good old-fashioned, Canadian luxuries that maybe don't exist in Saudi Arabia, like women. Whatever, drugs, drinks, everything, right? And so when I
sex.
don't they have that in Saudi Arabia?
Absolutely not, sir. You fuck a goat or you don't fuck anything.
I'm sorry. I thought it was camels.
No.
Okay.
Goats, camels, all the same.
So when I read this, it reminded me of that, where I didn't realize just how I don't say pervasive, that's the wrong word, but how much of a relationship exists between those two countries. And in 2018, it all went to shit. It all went to shit. Trudeau and his people, they decided to speak against. There were a few things that Saudi Arabia was doing at the time internally, like in their own country. Like, they had some mass executions for like treason and shit or whatever. Anyways, Canada spoke out against this publicly.
Why? Like, why?
I don't know.
Why? This is the thing.
I don't get that.
This guy, you know what a white knight is, right?
Mm.
Trudeau is definitely either
white knight.
LGBTQ liberal, or he's a fucking conservative cuck inside. He's a white knight. Like, this guy, I kind of wish he was like a anarchist, just because he's so shit. Like, he's a shit disturber in the worst way.
Mm-hmm.
There's no benefit of his shit disturbing. Like, nobody benefits from him disturbing shit, like, anywhere in the world,
and
because nobody respects him.
That's exactly what happened. As soon as Canada spoke out, Saudi Arabia just fucking pulled everything. Canceled all the scholarships they had for the students, told everybody, get the fuck back or you're paying your own way. So everybody obviously just went back. Pulled their diplomats out of all embassies. Made the Canadian diplomat in Saudi Arabia persona non grata, so they had to get the fuck back to Canada. Like, it completely severed a lot of relations that we had. The only thing that remained during this time of turmoil until last year was the oil agreement that Canada and Saudi Arabia had. Everything else got basically just fucked. And I didn't realize just how big that relationship was. But did you know that Saudi Arabia also has only had one family in power?
Well,
it's the Al Saud family.
This is the thing.
Saudi Arabia is from the name.
People don't actually. It's a funny thing. In every aspect, from everybody, there's like genuine facts in a niche that people in that niche like find as common sense.
Yes.
But then, somebody from the exterior looks it up, gets in that niche in a rabbit hole, whatever the case may be, and then they're like, oh my God, did you know? It's like if you're Peruvian, let's say you lived in Peru for 20 years, and something happened in Brazil, you think you'd hear about it?
Yeah.
Same shit. Like, you grow up learning these guys' history, because Iran's education system is far superior to Canada, and there's other countries that are superior to Iran, but I could just tell a difference. Like, I was not the best student in Iran or in Azerbaijan, because I was going to Iranian school.
Right. But
when I came here, I realized that I'm significantly well rehearsed in things that in my age group people weren't. I don't know if you know. Do you know I got 90% in math 12 and I did it in grade 11?
No.
Like, weird shit like that. You find, like, even Remember Kazra?
Yeah.
He's a very average kid, but his grades were significant.
Yeah.
He was a good student.
Yeah.
And that's because he grew up in Iran and he came over here, and then that was instilled on him. Same with these Chinese kids you see, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Instilled, like, bro, they only take physical educational breaks because the research shows that if you do like 5 to 15 minutes of activity between lessons, you're gonna absorb like 20 to 30% more.
Yeah, yeah.
So you'll see like Chinese kids in Chinese classes in grade 5 learning calculus, right? But then the teacher is like super involved in those kids, like like literally 12 hours a day they go to school, and the teacher's with them pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what raises, like, they ask what you should do with the education system. That's what you should do. You should stay away from being open-minded and all this shit until the kid is after high school.
Yeah.
Then you can talk about open-mindedness and take liberal arts and whatever the fuck you want. But get that base where it's like, okay, everybody's got to work hard, right? Everybody's got to learn some shit. And then it kind of changes people's value. I think right now we're all focused on being such individuals, whereas that in itself is not individuality. It's like, it's not original to be individual anymore. It's like everybody's trying to be an individual. Like everybody's trying to be like, oh, I'm the only guy that does this. It's like, no.
That's a very Western mentality to have, right? That's not so much an Eastern mentality. Like I saw a lot of that in Japan, where they're like, this is like individuality is not a thing here. Like, yeah, you know, there are people who want to be able to express them. That's fine.
I
but
think
as
a
culture,
lot of Japan. I think a lot of Japan is individuality. Actually, I'd say a lot of
I would not say
a lot
so
of Muslim countries has nothing to do with individuality, and a lot of Asian countries they're still instilled with individuality because those places were either bombarded or they had some type of American effect. If you go to Korea, everybody wants to be an original. Every girl looks the same.
If you go to Japan, I'll tell you right now, you won't get that feeling. I didn't, anyways. Just being there, it felt very much the opposite. It felt very homogenous.
Wow. Okay.
Like they, I mean, obviously they've opened their doors because they used to be a closed door country.
Yeah, they used to be a closed state. Yeah.
And even though they've opened it and they've gone through the war and all that stuff, they still feel very homogenous as a people.
Have you ever been to Mississippi?
No.
I have that vibe in Mississippi.
Have you been to when have you been to Mississippi?
I've been to Mississippi. So
when the fuck were you in Mississippi?
When I was right before I started dealing dope, I was going on.
Like the whitest thing I've heard you ever say in your life.
Listen to this. I've actually traveled to, I think, 46 states, 46 or 45 states, and this is how. From the ages of 12 to 15, 14, I went with my dad and I learned how to drive a truck, like a semi-truck. And this guy was such a criminal, he would let me drive, like, on my own while he slept.
Yeah.
So, like, imagine going through the Rockies and the truck is stalling because you don't know how to use a clutch properly, and you go high-low. So, like, if you're at a 4, you fuck up and you go to, like, a 5 instead of going to a 3. So you're revving, and then it's not enough rev, it's not enough speed for 5. So the truck just fucking stalls, and you're on a gear. So what happens is like when the truck stalls and you're on a gear, you know this, you're a fucking mechanical engineer.
It's okay.
It fucking
it's like what you
skids.
it's like what you just mentioned, but
it just skids like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
You just fucking skid, right? And this motherfucker comes flying out the back. Right?
Oh, Jesus.
Decking the back seats just face first and feet first, right? Like sideways.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And he's like Arman, chikar kardi, which means in Farsi he's like, Arman, what did you do? And I'm looking at him, I'm 12 years old, maybe 12 and a half. I'm like, I thought I got it. I thought I had it. But anyway,
Jesus.
Long story short, we traveled to Mississippi. We get off at a Flying J. And we go to a store clerk. We got like Slurpees and shit. And my dad's English is like, you know, that poor bastard, man, he was a villain to himself. His English was fucking brutal at that time. Because we're only like a couple years into Canada.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I want to buy this. And back then he used to smoke. So he's like, give me a pack of Marlboros, right? And the guy's like, you're not from here, are you? And my dad's like, no, we're from Iran. And as soon as he said from Iran,
oh shit,
that was that was pretty
close to 2001. Pretty
yeah,
close. That's like
pretty close.
At 12, you would have been 2003, 2004.
No. How dare you?
Sorry, 2006, 2005, 7, around there.
Yeah, around there.
Yeah,
so, he pulled a drawer and he put a shotgun on the thing and he said, you guys better get the fuck out of here before I blow you. And then I'm like, can we still take it? He's like, take it. I'm not gonna make you pay for it, but you gotta get the fuck out of here.
Jesus.
And then we just we left
Yeah,
with
yeah,
fucking
what are you gonna do?
Slurpees in our hands.
Yeah, yeah.
And my dad's like, that guy thought he's gonna fucking shoot me. Get the fuck out of here. Cause you know, my dad been in prison, right? In prison, they whip you and shit, and they fucking drill your feet and shit. Like my dad walked with a limp for fucking since I was born. And I always asked him like, what happened? He had a fucking hole like that on his fucking
Jesus.
on his fucking foot, on his heel.
Yeah.
And he's like, they fucking drilled my foot in fucking prison. It's like a fucking hole, and it healed, but it healed fucked up.
Yeah,
you could tell
it wasn't in a hospital.
No.
It wasn't in like
You could tell it was all fucked up and shit.
Yeah, it's fucked.
And long story short, it's like the hardships people feel are only significant to their perspective here. So like we sit down and we think we have some hardships, and then you go to the third world countries, and then you're like, God damn it, they haven't had electricity in 35 hours. Right? Different kind of fucking story. Buddy needs water. There's no fucking Aquafina. You go to a fucking well, and then you put like a fucking one of these bug cloths that you put on your fucking window to get the sand out.
Jesus.
Like that kind of shit. And then you got guys over here like, you know, letting their girl like walk all over them and shit, and like people's perspective and the world's perception is so far gone that I don't think we can actually click back to that.
I don't know about that. I think that to your point, the other thing that's really crazy about these countries is just the overall politics are a lot more savage, like real savage.
Yeah.
So the closest that most people here will be to a royal family will be the English. But the English have always been very proper in everything that they do. So they'll like backstab and they'll do like, you know, whatever, political moves. But it's never really that bad.
Child trafficking rings.
No, okay, that's separate. I'm talking like I'm talking about within their own family. Like if they're making plays, like if a prince wants to make a play for the crown kind of thing. Gone are the days where a prince would literally kill his own brother and decapitate him and then be like, I'm now the king. That kind of stuff is gone. Right? They don't really do that anymore. They haven't done that for a long time.
Are you for that stuff though?
No, but hold on, here's where I'm going with this. Hold on.
Hold on.
What the fuck?
Hang out with too many Persians.
Jesus, seriously,
God
man.
damn it.
I saw another Persian today. Maybe that's why. Mohammed bin Salman imprisoned his own mother.
You gotta do what you gotta do, bro.
Bro, in 2017, when he made his play for the crown, essentially, I wish people were cooler with that part of the world so that we could make movies about this kind of thing, because we've almost exhausted all of the stuff that people are comfortable with here, like House of Cards, or like even Pablo Escobar. Like, yeah, sure, he's been around, he's been in the news for like 40 years. There's other stuff in the world we could be making shit about, like Asian fucking dynasties and like Saudi Arabian. Like, so there's so much out there, and I wish someone would make a series from 2017 to 2019 Saudi Arabia in the kingdom, because what happened in that time was nuts. Mohammed bin Salman, I haven't dug deep into it, but he made a play where he basically purged the upper echelon of the royal family, like some of his cousins, fucking even his own brother, and his own mother.
Yeah.
He either imprisoned them, a couple of them died, froze their assets, and kicked them out of the palace, so to speak.
For how long?
Some of them indefinitely. His own mother hasn't been seen to this day.
Yeah. Do you know why though?
It keeps getting asked. Back when Obama was still back when Obama was still president, they asked, they're like, yo, like, how's your mom doing? Like, where's your mom at? And he's like, oh, and he'd be like, and these are in official visits, right? And MBFs would be like, oh yeah, you know, she's sick, she's out of the country, you know, getting attended to. And then when Trump came into power, Trump actually made a real play to become very friendly with Saudi Arabia. Like that, the first country he ever went to right after he got elected was Saudi Arabia.
Best president ever, dog.
Okay, relax.
Name a better one.
Bro, let's not get
Kennedy?
sidetracked.
He got shot in the head.
Bro, let's not get sidetracked.
Put the bread in the land spread.
And then the same question. He's like, oh, how's your mom? Like, how's your mom doing? And the same answer. She's like, oh, yeah, she's getting treatment. He basically, what most people theorize is his dad, so the king, is basically Alzheimer's. Like, he's gone. Like, mentally, he's gone. MBS understood that in order to make a real play for the crown, he would have to remove any influence to his father. As long as his father was isolated, there'd be no threat to anybody telling him no. And one of the biggest threats was his own mom. So he fucking imprisoned her and then he put her under house arrest and just separated her from ever seeing his dad again. Kind of fucked up because it's not even a stepmom. That's his actual mom.
Yeah.
Kind of wild.
You gotta do what you gotta do, man. Some people are crazy. You gotta do what you gotta do. This is the thing, man. I understand if your mom is saying some shit that's against you because she's never gonna be in power and she's disagreeing with you, and you gotta put her in her place. But at the same time, in the same token, it's your own mother.
It's your own mother, bro.
You know what I'm saying? At the same token, it's like, why is your mother like? That's the defining
maybe you should
factor.
be asking that first.
That's my defining factor. Is like, why is your mother reflecting an opinion that's completely against yours?
Yeah.
To the point where you are threatened.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know if I was in power, my mother would not be trying to control my choices.
Yeah.
Because she's never going to be in power, and she's my mother, so she'd want the best for me.
There's a couple of different ways I kind of see this whole thing. On the one hand, the easy one is like, oh, you know, MBS is not crazy, but he's like power hungry, blah, blah, all this. And on the other, the one that takes his side, you could make the argument that a lot of what he was trying to make changes for, this 2030 plan, a lot of like the women's rights things, you heard about this, like they can drive now, they don't need male supervision to travel, all this like stuff.
What a mistake.
all the changes that he wanted to make, good or bad, would not have happened with all the people that he kicked out still in power. Like they would have pushed against it because they're so instilled with what tradition was. They were so instilled with Wahhabism and like how.
So this guy wanted to be open-minded.
Exactly. Well, not only open-minded, but he wanted to do things his way, and he understood that Saudi Arabia is not a country where you can just do that without having certain people out of the picture.
Okay.
So that's kind of. And
I think if anybody's gonna understand that, it's fucking LGBTQ Canada, bro.
And
like,
unfortunately, his mom just happened to fucking be
friendly
in
fire,
that
dog.
yeah,
Friendly
basically.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
You'd rather be safe than sorry. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's the thing. It's like you gotta. Like I had one of my buddies call me, and he's like, if you think I'm strict, he's super strict with his girl.
Jesus.
And he was telling me some crazy stuff. And in the same token, like how a super open-minded white cuck looks at me and like, you're fucking insecure. You're
Yeah.
Because if you really think about it, man, if you're not whitewashed, you have high standards from the opposite sex. More so than if you are.
I agree with that.
You know, whitewash, because the culture here is like, be understanding, be but it's like
bend over.
But the problem with this bending over shit is like, as a man, you're expected to be a gentleman, but then the same expectation is not the same in 2024 from women. It's not. Like back in the day, man, we could run reels and videos of back in the day of interviews from women looking at a bikini saying like that only sluts wear that shit, but how many girls wear bikinis now?
I get what you're I get your argument. I get your argument.
The other thing, it's like having drinks from a man.
Yeah.
Right? Pretty common sense now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most girls, most of the time, they're like, hey, I'm going out with my coworker. I'm going to go have a drink, right? Or I'm going to go have dinner with, some guy from work or whatever, whatever the case may be, right? And most white girls I dated, or I'm not even trying to make this racial, most Canadianized, like people born here, even if they're Iranian, they're raised here, and their parents are also raised here.
Yeah.
They have a different perspective. That's okay by them. But back in the day, that was a huge red flag. That was a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Little shit like that, and even clothing, like perspectives have changed, clothing has changed, like those were different kind of people, right? I think that nuclear family thing, when we circle back to that, we've circled back so many times to that, was honestly the answer for majority of people to be happy. Because girls back then didn't think they were queens. They were ladies. It was very common among girls to all be very polite, all be very ladylike, and submissive and all that. That was like what was expected. And then men were also expected to be gentlemen, right? Therefore, that's a good combo. Right now, you have a teeter-totter where it's super heavy, high expectation on men that we should be okay with everything a girl does or get out.
Yeah.
And a very low expectation on women that they think that they're all queens and they should get paid for and you should do these things for them. But then if you don't listen to me, why am I holding the responsibility of getting, paying for you and doing all these things if you're not going to listen to my boundaries and my rules and my regulations? Because back in the day, you pay for a girl, you tell her you can't go to the supermarket, she doesn't go to the supermarket.
Yeah.
So if you want me to be a gentleman, no fucking problem. But be okay with taking orders, right? If I'm paying for shit, you're moved in, and I'm paying for everything, then you got to take orders. Otherwise, it's like you can't. Remember, I had a saying in Farsi. نمیتونی هم خدا هم خرما داشته باشی. You can't make a fast and still be religious during Ramadan, right? You can't break your fast and still be religious during Ramadan. You have to either pick. You're going to fast and be religious, or you're not going to fast and not be religious. Can't go 50%. And that's what the culture is right now. And it's a very brink spirit because I seen it affect, like, I grew up with my sister, right?
Yeah.
6 years older than me. She thinks like that.
Yeah.
She's like, I asked her, I was like, hey, say you're going out with a guy and you tell him, I'm going to Vegas with a girls trip. And I'm going to go to nightclubs and enjoy some concerts. What do you expect him to say? She was like, I expect him to be open to that and like not cause any problems. And if he does cause problems, I'm out. And I'm like, well, why the fuck would he want to be with you then?
Yeah.
If everything you want to do while you're single is what you're going to do while you're in a relationship, what does he need you for?
Yeah, what's the benefit there?
There's none. And then he's got to pay for you? And she's like, I don't give a fuck about him paying for you. I'm like, okay, well, then that's that distinction. But there's girls that are even a step further than that. They're like, you got to pay for my car. You got to pay for this. You got to pay for that. It'd be nice if you fucking paid for this. But then when it comes to, hey, can't be doing that. Don't do this. Oh, you're bullying me. You're being a bully. You're doing this. You're abusive. Like, they just label you right off the bat, right? So what are your thoughts? Give me the short version of this.
I'd like to get into it more. I don't want to give a short version of this. I'd rather we
give me a discussion on this
a little bit more.
Yeah. 27, bud. Haircut tomorrow?
I don't have time tomorrow.
Or was Sunday?
At least be today. Sunday could be.
What are you doing this weekend? You doing anything fun?
Yeah, going out tomorrow.
Okay. Let's see the hair. Not the worst. Not the best either. Give me a side profile here. Yeah, you need to get cleaned up.
Needs to get cleaned up.
Yeah. What do you want to do here, bud? Give me a
I could record another 20-minuter, 30-minuter.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're looking at for time.
I'm looking at 5:19 right now, so another 20-minuter, 5:40, and then I gotta dip hard. Like
what's your hard stop?
6.
Hard stop.
I gotta be at the door at 6.
What door? What happens at the door?
I gotta be at the door. Like, I mean, that's how fast I gotta go.
Oh, I understand.
You
I'm
get
like,
what I'm saying?
waiting for something.
I gotta be at the door.
Yeah, I'm like, you got a package coming in? Okay. Decisions. I really do need a cut. But I also do want to record another one.
You can't just...
What are we thinking here? Can we fit both in? That's tight.
It's super tight.
Super tight.
So, okay. Let's stop this one.
Yeah,
Let's
okay.
fucking...